Today, what I'm going to talk about is something which initially probably sounds a little bit counterintuitive, in that we're talking about an in-person experience online in a FinTech conference. So this is all about how to involve people in a relationship managing their clients. And I'd like to put that into a little bit of a perspective here to the things that are hype in the industry in FinTech, which is a lot of the AI and a lot of the bots. And I've been taking a little bit of an example here from a platform that we're helping to empower, and it's a payment platform by the French government. And what they have is they have an agent that actually greets you when you have a question. Now, the platform is for getting your payments done electronically, that for services that you rendered for French government entities. So effectively, I went in, I asked the question, I said, well, assuming if I'd like to find out the status of a reimbursement, because that's what the platform does, should be easy for a bot. And the bot came back and said, hesitating to give you an answer because there's multiple answers that she can think about. So I was like, well, maybe I have to put it in better terms in that I'm actually looking for when a payment will actually be made. So how long does it actually take for payment to be made? And the bot came back and said, she doesn't understand what I mean. And I was starting to be a little bit frustrated here. And I said, well, can I actually speak to a real person rather than a bot? And what then happened is that she was actually quite happy to continue to talk to me. And that was actually, that's a real recording, and I'm aware of the fact that we have other clients that are using bots, and they're much more well-trained to actually take you through a certain process. The point here is that while there is a lot of use in using bot-like technology and artificial intelligence in order to drive your customer interactions, there's probably a lot of value in actually doing that for routine transactions and things that customers understand. And I think there was a presentation earlier today that was highlighting the fact that if you're in a certain troubled financial situation, you're probably more comfortable talking to a bot or a machine rather than to a real agent and a call center agent that would look at your account and basically going, oh my gosh, you're indebted and you don't have any money coming in and all of that jazz. So there's probably a good thing for transactional activities, but the more complex your life gets and the more critical the decisions are for your future life that you're doing financially, be it investments, be it pension funds, be it insurances, that are really a big part of your spend, the more you probably still prefer the in-person experience or the real advice that someone can actually provide you with. Because people trust people still, even though it's a digital world. And that's kind of where we come in with our proposition. Essentially what we are proposing as a technology, we're a software company that is 10 years in the making, and we've been advancing through a lot of technologies that will help banks use existing platforms that they have invested in on their journey to actually care for their customers better and to utilize a lot of the relationship and the goodwill that they have been building up, but to actually regain the touch that they've probably lost on the way with their clients as they went all electronic and all digital channel. And the reason being is that when I went to a bank 20 years ago, the banker probably knew me and he had a conversation with me and he knew that I started a family and I have kids and I have to buy a house, and he probably offered me a mortgage, and he kind of knew where I was in life. Now that everyone is in a digital channel, online, the bank can do big data analysis and try to figure out where you are, but is probably not able to hit that moment of truth when you would be ready to talk about taking out a mortgage or do a credit finance or buy an ETF or an investment product. And that's the big challenge for banks. While automizing with a bot on the routine activities, how do I actually work with the client in the electronic channels when they're ready to actually have a discussion with me? And how do I line up those conversations? And that's where we've developed a platform that allows you to do live interaction, a messenger style that is pretty much like a WeChat or other chat platforms, a WhatsApp, to have co-browsing capabilities, so to see what the client is seeing simultaneously as the client is accessing the e-banking environment, to have live chat, to share documents, and to basically create that same interaction that otherwise you would only have when you sit down together in the same room. And what that looks like is what we're going to look at in the next upcoming demo. So here's the customer, being me, and then here's my client advisor. And I'll take you through that scenario. And if you're all ready and bear with me, then here's kind of where we're going. We start off by using a mobile app, because we all know it's much less intrusive to have a mobile app with your client advisor. You can drop him a line. You can find out some things that you need in order to complement just a picture that you have in a head that probably will eventually lead for a transaction. And equally, the advisor can use this vehicle much more or much less intrusively than giving you a telephone call or sending you emails or trying to send you electronic messages via your electronic inbox in your e-banking. So the beauty here is that we've got a fully authenticated application that typically works on the client side that hooks up into your e-banking. We've got an authenticated application for the client advisor and the relationship manager. A lot of our solution work in the wealth management and higher value banking sphere so that you can actually line up that conversation on a mobile interface. And that's what we're going here in the scenario. We're lining up a conversation. We basically have a little bit of a chit-chat exchange, and we're then lining up a more strategic conversation later in the afternoon where we say, well, we have a private room, and we actually can go through an interaction where we're using the screen of the e-banking. And what you see here is the client logged into the e-banking environment, and they're starting the same experience with the chat, and they continue the same conversation that they're having with the banker. And here you see the banker where they're working on this big screen now, because you will see later on we'll need the screen estate to make the transaction more meaningful, and we'll line up that conversation. Now, first off, we want to make the conversation really personal and start a video type of transaction. So I don't have to travel in, but I can maintain a direct connection with my client. We can see each other, of course, when there is fit. Not all environments are suitable for that, but it actually creates a lot of intimacy between the banker and the end client when they have that type of a conversation. And what you see here is the picture, what it looks like for the end client to actually have that conversation. Now, what the relationship manager is doing is that he's asking for consent to share the actual screen that is outputted by the e-banking application. And you now see a little bit of a green frame that goes around that screen that indicates that the screen is currently shared and visible to the banker. You see a second mouse pointer appearing, and that also indicates where the banker is currently looking at, and they're highlighting certain areas so that you can actually use your e-banking platform as the foundation for a discussion. There's no additional investment that you have to make to facilitate a conversation. You can use the existing digital channels to now start to have a meaningful information, because naturally, that's where all of your information sits anyway. That's where your portfolio management tool typically resides, and that's where you have the conversation. Now, in addition, we can now overlay your e-banking experience, and we can start looking at external resources. So what we're doing here is we're starting off an external resource, can be a Bloomberg, can be a Morningstar, it can be any other bank's information, it can be internal applications that we're using as the backdrop to our conversation. So we're reviewing the performance of the stock market, and we're seeing where we're going, and we're having a conversation of what the investments should be. In addition, we can also share documents. So the whole onboarding flow that you typically have to go through and the whole review of documents that you usually have to do with your client, you can now also do as part of this process. All you have to do is drag and drop the document into the conversation, open it up, it will be rendered and visible to both parties. Again, you can do the highlighting function, and you can run through that document together and basically see where it all takes you. And lastly, we're now going back, and this is the view that actually the relationship manager is having of the client screen. So you can now see that while I've got all the collaborative capability and we've got the little picture for the video, equally we also see the screen here that is being displayed to the client. And again, that is the very screen that the e-banking environment is delivering out to the end customer. So there's no need for trying to simulate or replicate all of that. You actually see the very application and the very output that the end client is seeing. Now, why all of that? It's very obvious. About 60% of all install-based clients that you have, they're much more profitable than actually gaining new clients. There's a lot of cost in gaining new clients. So the question is, how can you become an active long-term partner for your banking client? And this is the ideal vehicle to decide yourself how active you want the customer relationship to be and how you actually drive that relationship forward. We already deal with in excess of 100 banks. You see a lot of big brand names here that are using part of our technology, that are on the journey to find new ways to use the digital channels to interact with their clients. We'll find that they're reducing interactions that are call center related by about 50% per every call type or every call that they're doing. We get a massive 90% propensity to recommend this way of interacting with the bank. And we find that we can do 4 times more interactions per client advisor and relationship manager than in traditional methods trying to meet up with clients in person. So if you're interested to find out more how exactly that could work for your environment and how you can take that opportunity forward, please come and see us at our stand. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention this afternoon. Have a good day.